The ad itself made me shiver, but at the same time, it was appealing. It said, "Earn $120 per night as a night guard in the morgue. Apply now." I'd been jobless for a while and had to afford to pay my rent and late bills, and with this kind of pay, I'd be able to live like a king. So, I applied hesitantly, half hoping I wouldn't get a response from the company. Not even 2 hours later, I got an email from the employer. "Thank you for applying to our position of night guard in the morgue. We are happy to inform you that your skills are suitable for our company and would hereby like to offer you a 1-year contract. If you agree to the terms below, please leave your signature via the online signature website listed below by 10 p.m. tonight. You will receive a payment of $600 weekly on the provided bank account." Tonight? I thought it was a little too soon, but I didn't complain. I didn't know what to expect or who I'd meet there, so I put on my shirt and jeans and went to the address a little early. I was there at 9:40 p.m., and a middle-aged man who seemed to be a morgue worker greeted me. "Hi, Ethan, right? I'm George." He shook my hand with a smile. "I know you were probably sent here on short notice, but the security company whose services we employ was in need of a new guard for tonight's shift right away. So, I'm outsourced from a security company to your morgue?" I asked. "That's right. You work for an outsourcing security company, and from what I hear, they pay pretty well. So, who knows, you may get an even better position in the future." He winked. "Right. So, about the duties here," I started. "Oh, that. No big deal. Just make sure no one breaks in." He leaned in and said, "Or out." We stared at each other for a moment, but then he chuckled and said, "I'm just kidding. Well, listen, my shift is over, so I'll be going now. Just sit tight in the office and relax until 6 o'clock in the morning. That's when the first shift arrives here." And with that, he left. I sat down by the desk in the office. I thought this probably isn't going to be so bad. There was a paper in front of me, and after observing it, I realized it was a list of rules addressed to me. It said, "To the new guard, welcome to the company. Below is the list of rules for your job. 1. The first thing you should do is conduct a full sweep of the area to make sure nothing is out of the ordinary, including the crypt. Important note, if any of the body chambers are pulled out in the crypt, push them back in. They should remain pushed in at all times. 2. After the sweep, you may remain in the office until the end of your shift. There were more rules listed below, but I decided to first check the place out. It was fairly small, with one big room that had medical supplies in it, the crypt, and a bathroom. I first decided to get the worst out of the way, the crypt. I left the office and opened the sturdy crypt door, immediately getting hit by a wave of cold air. Inside were 2 body carts in the middle of the room, and cold chambers on the walls. All of them were closed, so I hastily left the room. On my way back from the bathroom, I saw a man in a lab coat standing in the medical room. He was fiddling with some of the tools next to a body bag. "Jesus, you scared the hell out of me," I said. He shot me a bemused glance and working. "I thought everyone left already. My name's Ethan. I'm the new guard," I said, but again, he simply ignored me. I waved my hand in dismissal and returned to the office. I was about to continue reading the rules when there was a sudden creaking sound reverberating throughout the building. It was faint, but it sounded like the pipes. It intermittently lasted for a few seconds and paused just as long. I ignored it and slacked some more, checking out my phone. But the longer the creaking lasted, though, the more I got unnerved, because they sounded less like pipes and more like moans. I got out to ask the employee about that, but he had already gone home by then. I couldn't tell where exactly the sound was coming from, but it sounded like the crypt, so I went there. As soon as I opened the door, the whole building went silent. I held my breath as I observed the room, and then realized that one of the body drawers was pulled out slightly. I pushed it back in and bolted back to the office. The creaking was completely gone by then. I continued reading. 3. You may sleep in the office, but it is inadvisable. Just then, the loudest sound just about made me jump out of my skin. "Please! Someone let me out! The voice cried from somewhere, and the pipes carried his voice. I stood up, heart racing. Let me out! I can't breathe! The voice repeated, now followed with a series of loud bangs. I opened the office door, and the screams were apparently coming from the crypt. I shuddered, but decided to open the door. I'm not dead! This is a mistake! Someone! The voice got louder as soon as I opened the sturdy door. Where are you? I frantically looked around. While the man continued screaming bloody murder and banging, I approached the source of the sound and leaned in to listen and make sure that this was the right chamber. I'm not dead! Let me out! Please! The voice and the banging suddenly stopped when I abruptly pulled out the drawer and was met with a cold, dead body of a middle-aged man. I stood there, staring at the corpse, my mind unable to comprehend what had just happened. I heard it so clearly, felt the banging as I heard the drawer handle, and then it was as if someone just shut it off abruptly. Was my mind playing tricks on me? I pushed the drawer back in and bolted out of there, shutting the office door and thinking that applying here may have been a bad idea. I felt like I was on needles, but convinced myself after a while that it was all in my head. I continued reading the rules. 4. You may play music to kill the silence, so long as it doesn't drown out any outside noises. 5. If you hear incoherent sounds coming from the crypt, you can ignore them. 6. If those sounds turn into panic screams, do the following. 1. If the screams are female, ignore them until they stop. Do not enter the crypt during this time under any circumstances. 2. If the screams are male, locate the source of the screams and pull out the body drawer. This should stop the screaming. The page ended there. I placed the paper down and leaned back in the chair. It was 1 a.m. I started feeling a bit sleepy, and after a while, my eyes started to shut. Just as I started drifting into dream, I felt a firm grip from behind on my shoulder. I instantly shot up, knocking the chair down in the process. No one was there. I no longer felt sleepy at that time. Everything was quiet for a while, and I went to the bathroom once more. When I returned, it was 4 a.m., and I was pretty much ready to end the shift here. I started thinking how it wasn't so bad for $120, until I flipped the paper with the rules and realized there was something else written on the back. 7. All the staff will be out of the building by 10 p.m., so if you see a man in a lab coat during your shift, do not, under any circumstances, try to talk to him. I reread the rule 5 times over, but the text remained the same. There was a gentle knock on the office door. I looked up, and through the glass, I saw the man in the lab coat grinning at me. It's 4:30 now, and he keeps knocking. Hi, I'm Jared Lynch, janitor at Augusta Hospital. I found this note while cleaning the morgue. I thought I might post it on the internet. To whomever may find and read this note, please reach out to my wife, Gladys Williams, or any of my children, Edward, Nikki, or William Koch. One of the nurses has been kind enough to give me some paper and a pencil, but I must still be discreet. Doctors are anal about objects entering my room. I'm writing this with my left hand since my right arm is no use anymore. It is difficult, but it's either writing it down or losing my mind. Ambrose is dead, and I am afraid I will soon follow. As you know, Ambrose and I never plan our yearly camping trip beforehand. We pack our stuff, I pick him up, and we drive until we run out of gas. This year, we went northwest and ended up 2 miles outside of a place called Hellmouth, where we set up our tent near a lake. The Hellmouth people are kind, though not used to strangers. We got our supplies at a local market where the cashiers are nice and the beers are cheap. The first night, we made our dinner on the little camping stove and told stories until the beers were finished. We spent the week fishing, hiking, and playing cards. The last day, we decided to spend an evening at a local pub, the Big Pole. Again, beer was cheap and the barkeep quite friendly. Alcohol seemed to loosen up the villagers. As the evening went on, the locals started telling us tall stories about the town. Some told us Hellmouth was named after the pagan god Hel, other that it was derived from the mouth of hell. Of course, these stories were more funny than true. I don't think anyone finished a story while containing their laughter, or changing the plot halfway into something even more ludicrous, except the last one. A teenager, student of Scandinavian culture, he claimed, said the town was named after Helmut, a Viking war leader and victim of an angel's kiss. He said archaeologists found a stone slab with runic inscriptions which tell the story of Helmut, which might have taken place in Hellmouth. Legend has it that the town is a very early Viking settlement dating back to Leif Erikson. Helmut was appointed as chief of the village, but he died a few months later. One day, he stopped talking and never started again. His limbs slowly turned black. He went mad. In the end, he killed himself by smashing his head with a rock over and over again. Scholars aren't sure about the translation of the runic script. Although old, the script is rather clear, except where it describes what made Helmut sick. Helmut's health declined after he ate something bright, white, called an angel's kiss. According to the runes, that is either a fish, flower, or some sort of rock. It was a flower. Ambrose found it during one of our hikes days earlier. Of course, we didn't know at the time. It was a beautiful flower, bright white with blue at the edges. It gave a very strong smell of hazelnut and honey. We had never seen such things in our lives. Looking back, that flower is the only logical reason for what happened yesterday. Ambrose woke up before me. When I got out of the tent, he tried to greet me, and he failed. I remember the panic in his eyes. Sheer panic. He couldn't speak. His throat had turned black up to the root of his tongue. I was becoming aware of a prickling in my throat. I cleared my throat and spat. My saliva was thick and dark red. Whatever had happened to Ambrose was developing inside me, too. I thrusted my finger down my throat and made myself vomit. Black. All black. Inside me was a thick, black mess. I have no clear recollection of what I did next. I must have been on the verge of shock. We must have driven up to Hellmouth, because I remember trying to find a doctor there. As amiable they were in the pub, as scared they were then. You can't blame them. The black had reached Ambrose's mouth, and I was bleeding from the nose. It was no pretty sight. Someone must have called the hospital, since eventually 2 ambulances and the police car came bursting through the streets. People in those hazmat suits pulled us into an ambulance, while the police kept onlookers at bay. In the hospital, we were immediately put in quarantine. Doctors came in and drew blood. A lot. I felt fainting a long time after. Communication with Ambrose was hopeless. He just stared up at the ceiling. Last night, Ambrose rammed his head against the metal bed frame. He bled to death. A Viking's death, apparently. The hazmats came to clean him up. An hour ago, one of the hazmat doctors came to me. I have a fungus inside me. Probably got in via the nasal airway, she said, but flourished when it came in contact with stomach acid. They don't know what kind of fungus they are looking for. All they know is that it's black and fuzzy. I asked if it eventually affects the brain. She said they don't know yet, but I have a dead friend and a dead Viking who support my claim. Shortly after her visit, I lost feeling in my right hand. Black is coming from under my nail beds. I catch myself drifting away, not thinking straight. I'll see you soon, Ambrose, and Helmut. In Valhalla, maybe? I'm tired. Death comes. It smells of honey and hazelnuts, and the smell was all it took. Anthony Hugh Koch. For context, every cruise ship contains a morgue. Legally, we have to have them. People die all the time on board, unfortunately. From children to elderly people. It can get rocky sometimes, especially in the late summer. We sail from the Bahamas all the way to Europe, and, oh boy, is it expensive. The money we get at the end is worth all the trouble, though. It's worth putting up the screaming children and all the mothers who think they deserve free things. I think I've said enough for you to get the idea of where I work. We've been having more deaths on the ship I currently work on, in strange ways too. Not the usual falling overboard and they don't know how to swim, or a dumbass jumping from one level to the bottom level. Yes, that happens. I don't even want to talk about how many times I've had to mop up blood because of a drunk frat boy trying to impress his friends. And after those events happen, we have to put them in body bags and send them to the morgue. The deaths we've been having lately, I have no idea how to describe them. We have housekeepers like any other ship. Sometimes they'll open the door and there's just pools of blood, but no body. Blood splattered across the wall, bed sheets torn up, looked like a goddamn murder scene. A murder could have happened in there, who knows? Just like any other job though, we all gossip. Bartenders, servers, DJs, literally everyone knows everything, except for me, I guess. Until now. I had been doing some sweeping on the lower level during the dead of night. Almost no one is out at this time, other than the super smashed passengers or employees. I hear some low whispering coming from around the corner near the bar, from, let's call her Jennifer. Jennifer and Dominic. I say whispering, but it's more like they're trying to whisper, but they're such fucking loudmouths. Anyone could hear them, to be honest. They start gossiping about the recent deaths in the few cabins that we have now been closed off to the public. No bodies in the room, only because they were quickly whisked off to the morgue, with somehow no one noticing. For those of you who don't know, the morgue fits very few people, probably 10 at the very most if you squeeze them against each other, a really tight fit. My curiosity got the very best of me, and oh god, I wish it hadn't. Swiftly and quietly, I had made my way down to the morgue. Our ship wasn't exactly known for being secure. I didn't even need a key to open the door to the room. The smell of formaldehyde automatically hit me. It was like nothing I've ever smelled before. With a room that stores corpses, I guess I should have expected nothing less. As if this was a fucking horror movie, the lights didn't turn on. Great. Thanks to modern technology, I whip out my phone and turn on its flashlight. Big mistake. I shouldn't have even gone down there in the first place, but I'm an idiot, in case you can't tell. The metal door had slammed behind me. Double great. Once I turned on, my jaw dropped. I swear my vision went blurry too. All the body bags were open, with not a single body in them. They were actually clawed open, just like the bed sheets. That wasn't the only problem, though. I moved my phone around, only to be greeted with, not unlike the cabins, there was blood all across the wall. Every single wall was covered with splattered blood, handprints, the goddamn works. But, oh no, that wasn't the worst of it. I pointed my phone to the floor to be confronted with footprints. Bloody footprints. It was like someone was pacing back and forth. But then, I realized that they were all different sizes. There were multiple bodies missing, and that's when I decided to get the fuck out. Looking back on it, I should have done it as soon as I saw the empty body bags. After shoving open that heavy-ass metal door, I darted to my personal cabin. I could barely see through my tears as I jumped into my small bed. I couldn't breathe, and I still can't. Not whenever I think about it. I don't think those images will ever get out of my brain, and I've barely slept. No one seems to even notice what happened that night. Nobody seems to care if they did know. I can't tell anyone. They'll think I'm absolutely crazy, and I'll probably get fired if the captain found out I went down there. At this point, I don't think I care if I'm fired. I'm here for 3 more weeks until I get back home. Help me.